Howdy, my friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Forte Catholic. I'm so glad that you are here. Chris Bartlett and I have a very fun conversation today where we talk about the saints, which if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that is the Catholic topic that I have the least amount of knowledge about. So I learned a little bit about saints today, but also I have a take about the saints and Saturday Night Live that I don't think you're going to like, honestly. I think I'm right. Ultimately, I'm kind of disappointed in how right that I am. It's a sad state of affairs, especially because I'm always right. Then to close out the show, Chris has a little segment that we do on trust that gets us all in our fields. There's a little bit of something for everybody today. I hope that you enjoy today's show. Have fun. Welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and that is Chris Bartlett. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Taylor. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. I'm grateful that our show is 97% audio listeners, and you just saluted the 3% that watch on YouTube. We appreciate you.
I see you.
I see. And they see us. They're the only ones that see us. So, Chris, I sound happy, but I'm not. I'm starting off with a frustration. Hot take about Catholicism in the public sphere. You ready for this?
I am.
Screw Indiana Jones. Screw him.
Okay, continue.
Okay, it's not his fault. That's just the hotter take. Screw the people who made the new Indiana Jones video game. Big deal. Big deal. Like this is, I know a lot of you don't play video games, but you know who Indiana Jones is. And there hasn't been a good Indiana Jones anything recently because the last two movies have sucked. There hasn't been a good Indiana Jones property in 25 years, but they really tried this past year. They did that Dial of Destiny that everyone hated, that Mr. Harrison's still very proud about and happy that he did for some reason.
Was that the newest one?
Yeah. It's all time
We
travel.
didn't finish it. Yeah. Okay.
You didn't finish it?
No, me and my older kids started watching it, and then they're like, okay, well, actually, the Great Circle, the video game came out, and they're like, let's play that one instead, which is the source of your rant. But like, we literally walked away from the movie and found more enjoyment out of the video game.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it was just me playing and them watching. Yeah.
So here's my Indiana Jones thing. I have a confession to make. I got another confession to make. You see, the cool thing about that band is you don't have to know the words. You just kind of mumble like they do, and it sounds exactly that. Everybody thought
just
they were
like
listening
Nirvana
to the album a moment ago.
Just like Nirvana. Foo Fighters is just the mumbling Nirvana. Yep, it's the same. Yep.
That's what happens when you give a drummer a microphone. Huge no-no. I'm just kidding. I like Foo Fighters. Okay, but mad about Indiana Jones. Here's the deal. This video game was coming out, and it was a big deal for Xbox. It's this is a very, very large game, very popular game. It got good ratings. It sold very well. This is a big deal, especially for Xbox in particular. And this movie takes place between the second and third movies. And my confession is I have seen 0 of those Indiana Jones movies.
Is that the original Indiana Jones movies?
I've never seen a singular Indiana Jones movie whatsoever. I've seen like a clip of him. Like I know he ran away from a large stone at one point. I know that he had every time he picks something up, something bad happens. Maybe he should stop picking things up. Like
and that was a tutorial to the game. Like the video game replayed. He's daydreaming back about the big boulder chasing after him and things like that. Yeah. Yep.
So I started playing this game, and because like I knew that the opening sequence was this famous boulder rolling thing, I was like, look, I know that I know I'm going to enjoy this story. Because they said, like, I follow video game podcasts and stuff. Like, they're like, this is going to be open to new audiences, but better if you're a longtime fan. So as I'm playing the game, I play for like an hour or two, and I'm like, I need some context because the game's not really grabbing me. So I go back and I watch the first Indiana Jones movie ever made, and there's some face stuff in there, and it gets super like weird and mystical. I'm like, oh, this is fun. Like, I can see why people like Indiana Jones. Then I watch the second movie. And now I'm like ready to play the game because now I'm quote unquote caught up, right? So that's where I stopped in the movies to be able to finish this game. And I just finished this game the other day. And as a Catholic, I hate this video game. It takes a lot to get me riled up about like, oh, Catholics aren't portrayed as good people and they have priests that do bad things. I'm like, yeah, that's just the news. So if you put it into a video game or a movie, it actually doesn't really piss me off. So there is a ton. You start the game off after that opening scene. The first like many hours, depending on how many collectibles you want to find, takes place in the Vatican, which as a Catholic is very cool. Like I took pictures of the Vatican.
Cool. You're walking into the Sistine Chapel after going down the Vatican Museum hallway, and I've been there on pilgrimage before, and I'm like, holy cow, like the graphics and things like it was outstanding. I called my daughter down from upstairs to show her because I'm taking her to Rome this spring, and I'm like, this is what we're gonna get to see. It was really cool. So I'm only like an hour and a half into the game, which means I'm still going around and hiding from Nazis in Vatican City. So something must have happened from where I'm at in the game to where you experience. So spoil it. Tell me.
It's about to happen because it happens in the Vatican thing. And here's the thing. The game starts off where there are Nazis. The Nazis are the main bad guys, but the Nazis have infiltrated every organization. They've infiltrated every government. So, of course, one of the most powerful places is the Catholic Church. Not the part I'm pissed about. Like, have there been bad actors?
You're still on board.
Yes. Like that's not what makes me. I want to make it very clear. I'm not angry for the reasons that I probably should be because I've worked in the church long enough. There's been corruption in the church down the road. Nevertheless, the one over in Vatican City. So,
right.
There's bad priests, but it's one of those balanced things. Like for maybe not 1-to-1, but it's like there's this. The Mussolini and Hitler have infiltrated this organization. They've put Nazis in as priests or okay, fine. That kind of stuff, I can see that kind of stuff happening. Like we literally know that from history that like the church in Russia, maybe not the holiest of priests for all the last 100 years. I'm not saying every priest, but I'm not saying everyone was good either. So, okay, you want to portray that in media, video game, that's fine. But here's where I started to get mad. I started to get angry. It's if people want to look from the outside of the church and say that, oh, the church is bad. Like if you ask most people who aren't Catholic about the Catholic Church, you're going to get bad stuff. Oh, we've heard about priests doing this and the Pope said this and this. You hate this, and this group. Okay, I get that. I've lived long enough. I've lived. I've not laughed and I've not loved when it comes to those sorts of things. But here's where I get mad. First thing that kind of irked me. It's not the reason that drove my blood to boil, and that's actually a good setup for what's about to happen. First thing they said is there's these scholars within the Vatican archives. So like right next to the museum and the Sistine Chapel, those places that you've been, that I haven't been. I was supposed to go with the organization that you lead, but it got canceled. That was before you were in charge. But I supposedly had 2 free trips to Rome. Both have been canceled by 2 different organizations.
Nice.
So I play the game and I overhear these 2. It's like a priest scholar teaching this young man, like pretty clearly a seminarian, right? And what he's saying is he's acting like this beautiful Catholic scholar, and it's like, Jesus was around in the years this and this AD, and then he told Peter that Peter, he had the keys, and he founded the church on Peter. I'm like, wow, like this is impressive. Like they did some research, and then they were like, so Peter founded the Catholic Church. I'm like, no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. So yeah. That doesn't get my blood to boil, but it starts to it just puts up a little red flag of like, something's going on. Because I'm thinking about how this was created. Microsoft is one of the most powerful organizations in the world. Their gaming department has just spent literally tens of billions of dollars to build up their teams and their acquisitions and all this stuff. There are hundreds, if not over 1,000 people working on this game. They couldn't hire one Catholic theologian to be like, hey, we're going to say this in the writing. Is that what y'all believe? Like they couldn't hire one. And like, I know there's one priest that typically gets hired for all the social stuff like this. Oh, can you come consult? And his father, his name rhymes with Rames Rarton. And it typically tends to not go well, but it's like, look, you couldn't hire one person who actually is a Catholic theologian to
Right.
to do this, right? Like, even if you just hire like just somebody like me, I would happily do it. You pay me a few $1,000s. I'd just read through your script, I'd just be a play tester and be like, that's not what the church believes, right? Okay.
Our friend Jennifer would be excellent at just kind of reviewing it and saying, reword this, and this is how, reword this,
Right.
and this is how. And since she's a writer, she could actually probably improve the dialogue. Like there's just, anyways. So if we can think of names, then they should have, because they have millions of dollars behind them.
Right. And it pisses me at the beginning of every video game that you and I play, it says, this is made by a diverse group of diverse beliefs. And so anything we're in here, we're trying to get as close as possible. We're not trying to offend anybody. Like, they put that there to say, like, look, we might not get everything right, but we're trying. And also, like, this game was made by Muslims and gay people and women and men. And like, it's a diverse people. You couldn't get one Catholic that knew anything? Like,
right.
Pretty basic that, like, Jesus founded the Catholic Church. I started getting frustrated, but not pissed, because I'm like, maybe they had some Protestants working on the show, and like, that's probably what they believe about our church. Jesus didn't found it. Like, that's a big Protestant.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, there's so many Christians. We're about half of them, but Protestants are the other half. So, okay, maybe they had some things here. Here's where I get pissed, and this is where I'm spoiling part of the game for you. Okay. All right. Indiana Jones is going to all these famous old sites. It's the Vatican. It's Egypt. It's Machu Picchu. And like, there's always a riddle. People that get Indiana Jones get kind of his shtick.
Puzzle
right?
games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for one of these puzzles, it's something about Jesus being crucified. And to unlock this secret door, there's a pedestal that, like, it looks like a water basin. And it's like, it needs Jesus's blood. And so they go around the whole city looking for, like, I've seen President Lincoln's blood from across the street from the theater, because he died across the street I've literally seen President Lincoln's blood. So they're going around looking for a piece of the, maybe a piece of the cross or a piece of the thorn that touched the blood. And then they're like, there's a priest here. He can make the blood of Christ. And I'm like, I'm actually really impressed that they knew this. So of course this priest is going to go say mass. Nope. He just takes a bottle of wine off of in his office, which is hilarious, by the way. Just that the priest just has wine bottles in his office. Takes a bottle of nice wine, just goes, in the nome Patri Filio Spiritus Sancti, Amen. And Indy takes that bottle of wine that the game is now telling us is the blood of Christ. Chris Bartlett, you're a Catholic theologian. Is that the blood of Christ?
Welcome to the quiz. Transubstantiation or no transubstantiation? Taylor, that falls in the category of no transubstantiation.
Right. So I'm already mad. And then I get to this pedestal thing with the to open up the door to get to the secret and all this kind of stuff, right? I'm just going to ask you what do you think they made me do with seemingly the blood of Christ?
Dump it into the basin.
I had to dump the full bottle into multiple basins, because once I poured it in that basin, three more basins popped up. I had to figure out that puzzle. So I'm just walking around pouring out what the game is telling me is the blood of Christ, and I'm dying inside.
It's sacrilege. It is literally sacrilege. Yeah.
So I'm pissed about it, and like, the more and more I get worked up, and then I'm like, why am I worked up? It's not the blood of Christ.
Yeah.
He just did this. It's not a sacramental. It's supposed to be a sacrament. So the whole thing made me mad. I felt so bad pouring out. It's a video game. It's virtual, first of all. But they're telling me it's blood of Christ. And it made me so mad that as a Catholic, one, they were making me do this, and two, I could have fixed this for you. Daily Mass takes 25 minutes. You could have just said, and then Father went next door and said Mass and did the same thing. But then I would be more mad because you had me pour it out in the next scene. I was so pissed about the whole thing.
And this is for Father Anthony. Not Father Antonio from the game, but Father Anthony.
That was the priest's name, Father Antonio.
I know. We called him Father Tony when me and my kids were watching, and we always jumped downstairs and we kept saying, stairs are for losers. Come on, Father Tony, jump down. He never did. But Father Anthony,
always a loser on this show. Always.
You got to ask him, is digital sacrilege required the same type of reconciliation as actual sacrilege? So if if the game did have that moment to where they did consecrate the wine, would you need to, for dumping it out, go to confession to be reunited with the church because it was just a digital reality? I wonder what he would say.
So angry, just so angry. Like in the midst of them promoting the Vatican, so cool. Like almost every other moment in the Vatican was just so neat. Like it was so good. And then like it left a bad taste in my mouth, and like I didn't enjoy the rest of the game. I finished it because I'm a completionist, and I beat the whole game. I spent another 15 to 20 hours playing that game over the course of a couple months.
Yeah.
Like did not enjoy it because I enjoyed the first 3 hours so much. And from that moment on, it
tainted the whole thing.
It really did. It really did.
Yeah.
So that's weird rant, but that's my one weird rant for the like 3 other people who have played that game.
I'm one of the 3, man. I enjoyed it, and I think I'm at that part. So yeah, thanks for the heads up.
So now that you know that you have to do it, premeditated digital sacrilege, worse sin than what I committed or not?
Yes, it would be more grave, wouldn't it? Because it's, you knew it, you do it, and you blew it. You got the conditions for mortal sin right there. Digital mortal sin. So
it makes me no. So I think that's the thing is I don't think I'd have to go to confession, but I would have to go sit in the confessional in the Vatican in Indiana Jones. There wouldn't be a priest there, it wouldn't be confession, but I would feel better if I just went and sat in the confessional and told the television what I did wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're not supposed to blame other people for sins. You hear your priests all the time be like, well, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I yelled at my wife, but it was after she did this, and this.
Right.
Like, no, you can't. You have to only say yours. And that's what I would do on here. I was like, yeah, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I committed sacrilege, but your game made me do it.
And you could not advance without doing it. It's not like you could be like skip scene or something like that. You can't. So that is a catch-22.
It really was. But I think the thing that saves me from it being a sin, it wasn't the blood of Christ. It was just
Poor theology
a nice
saves the day.
From 1917.
Nice.
Which is less impressive in the 40s than it would be today.
Right.
Anyway, I'm like legitimately sweating. I was like, I was legitimately frustrated. Like just mostly with like, seriously, like just like this would be a great side gig for youth ministers. If you've been a youth minister for more than 5 years, like these companies should just be like, hey, can I talk to you? Can I pay you for like an hour? We'll pay you your salary, which is literally pennies to us because it's pennies to you too. We'll pay you your salary for like, just play through this game and let us know your thoughts about even if it's just the Catholic part.
Just change the puzzle. Just change the puzzle to be like, this is water that Jesus, after Jesus touched it. And then you could use wine again, and it's referencing the wedding feast at Cana. You know what I mean? Like you could just change the puzzle, leave everything else the same, and just change the premise of the puzzle. And then you're good as well. So, yeah, easy fix.
Stupid Nazis. I was more mad at the game makers than the Nazis. That's a problem.
That's so bad.
I could defeat the Nazis. I couldn't defeat the game developers. So,
right.
All right. I have another segment. If I think most people were listening to that were probably pissed off with me, or at least hopefully entertained. I think I'm about to change the tide, and
let's hear it.
I'm hoping you'll be able to argue on behalf of the listeners, because I think I have an argument, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, and I'm sad about it, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Okay.
My question to you: I have recently been reading. Audiobooking the entire complete history of Saturday Night Live. It's like a 40-hour, 36-hour audiobook. I just completed it. I learned so much about the history of Saturday Night Live, just the institution that it is, how much it has helped launch so many careers. We're currently in the 50th year right now. And especially after reading this book, but also they're like, every episode during their 50th season that they're currently in, they're bringing back the OGs. They're bringing back people from the original cast, the second cast, the fifth cast, the seventh cast. And it's just such a beautiful reunion that like I've had tears in my eyes multiple times watching a comedy show because it's such these cool moments of like honoring the past, right? So here's my take. My question is, which has done more for their institution? Catholic saints for the Catholic Church, or Saturday Night Live for the institution of comedy? Which has done more? My argument is, I think Saturday Night Live has done more for the institution of comedy than Catholic saints have done for the institution of the Catholic Church. Initial thoughts, Chris Bartlett.
There's no way.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, like you look at St. Francis, he rebuilt the church. Anytime that there is a great enemy to the church, amazing saints rise up. Communism, and you look at JP2. Like, I just want to argue, without these great saints, there would be no Catholic Church.
Interesting.
There would still be comedy without Saturday Night Live. And you could say that it's been around for 50 years. And in that 50 years, they gave us about 28 years of good comedy. Like, there was a season from really 2002 all the way until about 2015 where Saturday Night Live was in a pretty big slump. And that's pretty well known. But you could argue that the church had some slumps as well, and it's definitely not apples to apples.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I just saw your face.
Well, I don't even want you to make that argument because I want to be very specific here. You started your argument correctly. I think you started. I'm not talking about downtimes in the church. I'm not talking about the church in general. Just to be clear, I think the church is more important than Saturday Night Live. I'm talking specifically about Catholic saints. So you started off by talking about saints, and then you went to the church has had bad times. I'm like, no. We're not talking about the church in general. We're talking about Catholic saints. And I think your arguments for St. Francis of Assisi and JP2 are very fair, very big name. My argument against that would be that two primary arguments. One specifically towards yours, and then secondly, I'll do probably what I think is my stronger argument.
Okay.
You mentioned, and again, you are like primo Catholic, and I think I'm talking like, okay, how can I word this? Most people in the world, whether Catholic or not, could name John Paul II. Maybe not most, but a large portion could name John Paul II because of, he was the Pope for a very long time, first of all. So just a lot of living people's lives he was the Pope for. And he fought against communism, which is a huge deal. We talked about that on the show a month or two ago. Actually, the last time you were on, right?
Your cabbie. Yeah.
Yeah. St. Francis of Assisi, less so, but I think I think most Catholics would know him. How many Catholic saints do you think? I wouldn't even say the average Catholic because the average Catholic isn't Catholic and doesn't go to church. But the average Catholic that goes to church, how many saints do you think that they could list? If you just pull the mass that you go to every Sunday, if you polled all of them, and like you're going to know 150, and your kids are probably going to know at least 30, 35, most of your kids, because they grow up in a very Catholic, but like you're canceled out by the guy in front that only knows the name of your parish. So like.
Right. Yeah. So that would be the answer. They would name 3, and then they could name the saint from every parish that they spent more than a year at.
Okay. So that
which is Mary and Joseph.
5 to 10 is probably my guess.
5, yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah, 5 to 10.
If you pressed them, maybe 15, maybe 20. I'm just trying to think of like the average regular Catholic, right?
Right.
If you ask them to name how many Saturday Night Live members in the last 50 years, how many do you think they can name?
Dang. I mean, I could probably name 25. Like it's yeah. Yep.
I'm pretty sure I could name more SNL cast members than Catholic saints, and I do this. I'm here.
You just finished the book, but yeah, it is fresh on your mind. Yeah.
So okay, that's the first thing. Second thing,
and I will say, just for a counterpoint, sure. Their impact on comedy is not directly correlated to knowing their name. Right?
I think, yeah. So I think there are some people who it would be like Adam Sandler. Everybody knows his name and everybody sees him. But I think you're also right that there are so many people from behind the scenes that their impact on it. Like the guy who runs the show, most people don't know his name, and he literally has been the producer of everything you've ever liked in comedy for the last 50 years.
Yeah. But I think about the show The Office, and The Office would not exist were not for, I think, some of the dry humor that Norm Macdonald brought about during Weekend Update. Like, I think he ushered in a more sober style of comedic delivery. And that was Michael Scott's entire character for the entirety of The Office. And so, but people love The Office, and they have no idea that Norm Macdonald paved the way through Saturday Night Live. So sure. You don't have to know the saint to experience the fruits of it. You don't have to know the comedian or the actor to know the experience the fruits of it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that probably bolsters both arguments. I see what you're saying. So, like,
Sure.
the Muppets started on Saturday Night Live. I had no idea until I read this book.
No way.
The
Wow.
Muppets. So literally every kid from my age to older knows the Muppets, and like all of our childhood was impacted by SNL, and we didn't even know it. Albert Brooks, all of his movies, like he didn't get his start, but it was like the second part of his career was all the digital, or not digital at the time, but those shorts that he would make for all the writers. Conan O'Brien was a writer on, like, people that we know for other things. It's like almost every late night show has been produced by Lorne Michaels, who is been pulling the strings at SNL for almost the whole 50 years.
Right.
My second argument when it comes to impact for their institution particularly is, if you ask me what is the most important institution for comedy, I would think it's SNL. If I asked you to list what are the most important things for the Catholic Church, for the institution of Catholicism, we have this thing called the hierarchy of truths in Catholicism. Mm-hmm. Number one on that hierarchy, I won't make you go too much further because it does get harder. Hierarchy of truths, Chris. What's number one on the things we have to believe, most important things we believe?
What we believe?
Yeah.
Probably the Trinity.
Correct.
The doctrine of the Trinity.
Yep. Where do you think Saints lands on that list?
Maybe below 7 or below.
I think it's way far down. I think it's way far down because there are 7 sacraments and none of the saints are more important than any of the sacraments. Sure. So that's another part of this like thought thing that I've had is like, are the saints important? Yes, absolutely. Are the saints more important for our faith than SNL is for our faith? Yes. But are the saints more impactful for the Catholic Church than SNL has been for comedy? And I think SNL takes the cake.
Okay. First of all, that's a solid argument when you put hierarchies, because there are more important things, whereas comedy doesn't have the same breadth or depth that the Catholic Church has. So of course there's going to be some things that are higher up. Not every pope was a saint, but every pope had authority, and magisterium is above sainthood in regards to the overall impact and lasting of the Catholic Church. However, I think that prayer is the fuel that keeps the church going, and saints model for the common people what prayer looks like. St. Louis de Montfort, like Marian devotion today is predicated on a lot of what he put forth. The Chaplet of Divine Mercy.
Where does Marian devotion rank in the hierarchy of truths?
Well, devotion is different because that's but like Marian dogma would be higher, right? I mean,
relatively high. Yeah.
I feel like you have a list that I don't have in front of me, and I'm like, I didn't come here for a quiz, man.
I'm Googling it, but I can't. I'm having trouble finding it too, but it's just.
But certainly higher than the saints. You're absolutely right in regards to it. But the development of that and the access for the laity to receive that and achieve holiness, I think the saints play a big part. Like Dio Divina came from a saint, and so we've got to think about the Ignatius style of prayer and, even thought in general and education, like Catholic education. Where does that rank in the hierarchy? Well, it doesn't rank anywhere were it not for the fact of the church scholars that have saint in front of their name, doctors of the church, and so I think that there's a saint behind everything that we talk about. The doctrine of the Trinity and taking down heresies like Arianism and modalism, there was a saint behind each of those, and so I think it gets convoluted.
We wouldn't know what Arianism was if it wasn't for Santa Claus. We all know Santa Claus way more than we know. The only reason we know about Arianism and St. Nicholas is because of Santa Claus.
punching a heretic in the face.
Exactly. That comes around every year. That's the only reason we know what Arianism is. It's because of Santa. Because of the commercialization, we all learned about Arianism. Thanks, commercialization of Christmas.
Sure.
It's not our campaign is not keep Christ in Christmas. It's keep Arianism in Christmas.
But you're saying that like we know of Arianism. That's different because of the saint. Then we are all Arianists. Like we are not heretics in that sense. And so there are moments in faith that the church was protected and safeguarded, yes, by different elements that are important, but there was a saint behind each of those elements.
I'm seeing your argument, and it's starting to come to fruition here, even in my mind. I think your best argument was the behind the scenes. I'm being influenced without even knowing it, right? Where so your Lectio Divina example is both an argument for me, but I think also an argument for you. Lectio Divina is one of my favorite ways to pray, and I have done it hundreds of times. Do you know how many times I've thought about St. Ignatius of Loyola when praying that? Maybe 3, because it was in the talk that led up to it or whatever. Or maybe I think on the retreat you and I were on together, I think I even told people hey, this was introduced by St. Ignatius of Loyola after he got hit by a cannon. So he was the only saint to be canonized twice. Hey!
Bazinga!
It's my one joke, so I'll keep using it over and over again. But I think what you're saying is, just like Conan had a super big impact on the show as a writer, or the writers' rooms on SNL, you could list out for forever of people who went on to become super uber famous, right?
Right.
But I think that's what you're saying about these saints. It's the impact on the church wasn't necessarily, it didn't stop at St. Ignatius of Loyola. It continues with Lectio Divina for years and years that I do on every retreat that I ever lead. I've led it together when you and I were leading a retreat together. It's so I think what you're realizing is, I think part of it is, I've said on this show multiple times that probably my least amount of knowledge in anything Catholic used to be relics until we solved that last week. Relics are solved. We did it. It might be saints. I think so, but here I am. And maybe this is the argument for you. I'm the kind of Catholic I am because I have lack of saints knowledge. Maybe that's the argument that all the listeners will make, is you suck. Learn more about saints. But
or that's why you suck. That's they're just now realizing. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Right? It's I have been through a lot of crap, but I have been a very devout Catholic at other times, and I've been hanging on by a thread at other times. And saints have always been pretty close to the bottom of that list. Yet, as you said, with St. Francis, the church would not be here if it wasn't for St. Francis. Probably some other people, right? The St. Peter, important. He didn't found the church, but he was pretty important at the beginning, right? But it's that not secret, but behind the scenes or faded into history influence that maybe I have been. I think I've been influenced by the saints way more than I think I have leading into this conversation.
And I think, and this will be my closing thought, I think that the saints have built the church like living stones. And while you don't recognize a wall, it was literally built by the saints, whereas the comedians and SNL opened doors to help progress comedy along, and opening a door and moving it to new horizons and new opportunities is different than being the very fabric that built the church. And so I would make the argument that saints have done more for Catholicism than SNL for comedy.
We'll stop there. I want to hear what people think. And now that you've heard the conversation, I think I would have gotten blasted in a poll if we just put it up without talking about it. I want to see. We'll put up a little poll, and then I also want to hear in the comments what you think. And one, don't be a jerk and just vote for me because you want to be on the a contrarian. But also don't vote for Chris because you're scared about going to hell. I want you to actually tell us what you think about this. Who has done more for their institutions? Catholic saints for the Catholic Church, or Saturday Night Live for
comedy?
Yeah. That was one of the big arguments that the book was making, is that their argument was nobody has done more for the institution of comedy than SNL. And it's that's not even an argument, right? Because stand-up comedy as an art form has only been around for 100 years. And it's people have always been funny and doing funny things. And there were comedy, Shakespeare was writing comedies that were somehow still sad. That guy sucks. I hate that guy.
Any digital portrayal of comedy, Mad TV, Kids in the Hall, In Living Color, all of them trace their origin back to Saturday Night Live. But even movies now, you'll see bits or clips in movies that look like bits or clips that were in Saturday Night Live. And they're like, hey, let's add 3 minutes of levity here. And they almost do a Saturday Night Live skit in the movie. And then they continue on. But there have been movies. Coneheads is a movie. Not at the Roxbury is a movie that came out of characters of Saturday Night Live. I mean, you're just introducing this thought to me in the last 10 minutes here, and I'm just like, whoa. Like, there's movies that exist in the Saturday Night Live universe, and it blows my mind. Yeah.
The way that this book is written, I've talked about this style of book, this author, the way that he writes books is he goes and he interviews people, and all he does is compile the quotes, and he makes the quotes into a story. So it's not even that, like a lot of books are like, paragraph, quote from famous person, paragraph, quote. He's like, no, it's literally all just quotes from these famous people that worked on the show, behind the scenes on the show, Lorne Michaels, all the cast members, all the actors. And it's like, obviously some of them have died, and there's, it's a big part of their history and all that kind of stuff too. But it's like, even for this book, like 70% of every famous person you've ever heard of was in this book. Like it's just unbelievable how much connections everybody had to everything. I was finding out that like the Princess Leia actor was married to one of the lead directors. I had no idea. Like I'm just learning. So it was just a very fun way to go through history. And here's the thing. I want to learn more about saints, and I've talked about this multiple times on the show, and no one ever seems to have a good answer because almost every saint book I've ever read is the most boring, dry
snooze
thing.
fest.
Yeah, like just, if you want to go to sleep, pray the rosary and or read this book, right? This book was so entertaining. It's history. They're talking about minutia, and I loved it because of how well it was written. If somebody could write a book or has a book about the saints that is actually entertaining, please let me know, because I do want to solve this problem. It doesn't sound like I do because it's been a topic once a year for the last 8 years here on the show, and nobody's come up with a solution. I haven't found one. I clearly need help, and I would like for you to assist me.
And didn't you have a friend on the show that we've played Rocket League with that literally wrote a book about exciting saints? You fell asleep. Okay, I'm sorry. Melatonin's going out of business, people. If your kids are tired, tell them a saint story while they're holding onto a rosary and they'll fall right asleep. Thank you, Taylor Schroll, for the life hack.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I have one good thing to say about saints. It doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but we'll
Sure.
stick on it for just a moment. So last night, as we record this, was the NFL honors. So it's essentially every award that they give out. So the ones that everybody knows, the MVP, defensive player of the year, man of the year, all these things, right? But this was very similar to a conversation I had on the show maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. I'll just refresh people's memory. It was at the Oscars, where typically it would be somebody like, Chris Rock and Angelina Jolie would walk out there and they would have a little bit banter. Then they would read off the nominees. And then, whoever, Angelina would read them off, and then Chris Rock would read the winner or whatever, right?
And like, the winner is.
It's the big moment. What they did last year at the Oscars was they had, let's just say it was 5. It was the same amount of number of nominees as it was former winners. So what they had was, let's just say it was 5. It might have been 7. I don't know. But 5 former winners, and each of them was assigned to a nominee. And I got goosebumps right now. I'm already thinking about it. And all these former winners of Oscars would come out. So like for all the ladies, for Best Actress, it was 5 actresses who had won Best Actress and 5 actors for the 5 guys or whatever the number was. And each one was assigned to a different person and was like, here's how well Matt Damon did this year, and he was in this movie, and this is how good he did. Here's how good Joaquin Phoenix did this year. And everyone had a different person they were assigned to, and they would just kind of gush about how good that they did, because obviously only one's going to win. But they got to hear a former winner gush about them in front of all of their people. Like I have tears in my eyes. I don't even like half these people, and I had tears in my eyes just watching this, right? The NFL took that idea of how emotional and impactful it was, and they did the same thing last night. There were 5, maybe 6, let's just say 5 again. 5 nominees for NFL MVP. So they brought up 5 former MVPs, and same thing. It was either MVPs or like superstars for the team that they play for, right? So
Sure.
They got to gush about this person, and essentially the guy that Josh Allen won the MVP, and as he's going up, he's dapping up everybody. All these former MVPs, all these legends are welcoming him into the crew. They did the same thing for the NFL Hall of Fame. Even bigger deal, right? There was probably 25 Hall of Famers up there that they got to welcome these people in. And LaDainian Tomlinson, who's in the Hall of Fame, was the main person speaking. So it was a little different. Not everybody spoke. LaDainian Tomlinson was the main guy with the microphone. And they did these 4 new inductees to the Hall of Fame. And like these people got told in the last week or two, but the public didn't know, right? So they're announcing these people, and it takes a while because it seems like they're just going to read a list of 4 people. It would go pretty quick, but they would read one list. He would walk up, he would go and either dap up or hug all these people. This is Hall of Famers from 50 years old to 75, 80 years old, right? And they're welcoming them into this club. And it's moving me, man. I'm just so emotional. I don't even know who half these players are because a lot of them are older, right? But it's just so emotional. And the last one, LaDainian Tomlinson, who is this main host, gets to, I'm tearing up again. He announces the last one. It's Antonio Gates, who was my favorite player growing up. He was the best tight end. I played tight end. He was a former basketball player turned football player. I was a former basketball player turned football player. And these guys were teammates for 10, 12, 15 years, right? And like his best friend and this teammate for years in the trenches together. I have to keep talking or I'm going to cry. He got to welcome him in front of everybody that they care about. Their whole community got to welcome them in. And it's like, man, that's heaven. That's heaven. That's what the Saints are.
Wow.
Right? It's like,
yeah, for sure.
Like I think I just have such this negative connotation with death. I think most people do, right? It's just like there's been so much death, man. Just people close to me, people close to the Catholic Twitter feed. Like there's just been so much death recently that I've been pretty emotional. I've cried almost every day at stupid crap on TV or even cool crap on TV because I'm emotional in my real life and all this stuff is connecting, right? It's just death.
Yeah.
So, like one of my huge mentors. This is a hard segment to get through. He texted me the other day. He has cancer and it's not looking good. He's getting treated right now. So if you could just please pray for, just call him my mentor. Somebody who poured so much into me, kind of saw promise in me, put in the extra work, trying to shape me into a better man.
Right.
It's rough, man. It's rough. And like here I am seeing these people get. So I have this negative connotation, and I'm sad for the people who've already died and the people who are going to die. I'm just heartbroken over the last few weeks, and seeing these guys being welcomed in, championed, good things said about them, welcomed into this exclusive group. It's like, man, that's heaven. That's what my mentor is going to get when he goes. The moment he dies, he's going straight to heaven, dude.
What an image. And which saint is going to dab him up? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's
probably one of the ones
amazing.
that I argued against in the last segment.
just because God likes irony. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, it was just a beautiful moment, dude. And it's just reminding me that, like, I think when he texted me and let me know, I think I have been more. I think I hold back praise a lot, especially for the people who have meant a ton for me, ton to me, right? And it's just like, he's essential. I hope he's healed. I hope everything goes well. But just if he's not, I got to tell him how much he meant to me, right? Like essentially, I got to be like I got to be LaDainian Tomlinson for Antonio Gates. It's like obviously I'm not dead, so it's not a perfect. But it's like I got to tell him, look, before you join this heavenly group, here's what you meant to me. Here's what you've done for me. Just really, really special moment. And so like I've thought about it too for like these people have lost. We have multiple friends lose babies in the last few weeks. And I know that's something that a lot of people have dealt with. It's just like, man, it's so hard and it doesn't take away from it being hard, but it just, I don't know. God gave me a special gift through watching this stupid NFL honors program that just gave me a little bit of consolation in a very difficult few weeks. So.
Praise God for that.
All right. Well, let's take a break. We'll take a little bit of a break and we'll come right back. Money has been a little tight over here in Forte Catholic land, so I have a few ways to ask for your help. One, you can join our monthly donor team over at fortecatholic.com/donate. We are a Catholic nonprofit, so every dime that you give goes towards the ministry that we are doing, and it's also tax season. It'll help you on next year's taxes. Those of you who gave last year, I sent out your donation receipts, and that'll help on your tax refund this year. So a little bit of help for everybody. But when you are supporting Forte Catholic, what you're doing is supporting not only this podcast and our evangelization online, but you're also helping over a dozen other Catholic podcasts that we work on behind the scenes, doing their production, editing, and all of those sorts of things. So if you like Catholic media and think that it is doing well, you like the things that we are doing, please send your support, fortecatholic.com/donate. You can give monthly. You can help us with one-time stuff. There's just been a lot of unforeseen expenses that we've had over the last couple of months. We could really use your help. Another way that you can help us is if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we have this thing called Forte Plus right there in the Apple Podcast app, where you can give a few bucks a month and subscribe and get some bonus content, including a special new project that's releasing in the next week or two, only for Forte Plus subscribers here on your audio feed. And the other way that you can help that is absolutely free is just by watching our YouTube channel. This whole podcast that you're listening to right now and every week, all of those shows are on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Forte Catholic. That's a way that you can help us take Google's money, that we don't even need you to give your money directly there. All of those things really help us to continue to be able to do this work that we love and we enjoy. We know that God is calling us to without having to stress about where the next dime is coming from. So thank you so much in advance, and thank you for all of those who are already supporting, and enjoy the rest of today's show. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I'm Taylor Schroll, and I have stopped crying. That is Chris Bartlett, and he too is not crying either. So I've shared everything that I want to share today. Now I'm just going to bounce off of you because you said, like a good co-host that you are, that you have a topic today. Which I do. Last month you had a topic, and then you canceled it on me last minute because you thought you were like, this isn't going to be good to share. I had 2 other topics like that today.
And yet you soldiered on and you still shared. So thank you, Taylor.
No. Yeah. I have 2 that I did not share.
additional ones. Okay. Because we got to see your heart. I want to thank you on behalf of the listeners that we got to see your heart, and that was beautiful, Taylor.
Did you see all the extra cholesterol that's gathering?
We got an idea of what your heart looks like if you stayed away from saturated fat. Yeah. So there you go. So I just got back from Atlanta. I flew out on
Is
last
that why
Sunday.
you're wearing the do-rag?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Go Pistons or whatever.
Yeah.
The Hawks.
Yeah, the Atlanta Pistons. So close.
Sorry, the Pistons were in town. There were some people, because they're not doing good, that in the evenings, they said, let's go to the Pistons Hawks game, because I've never been to a professional sports game. There were people from like, Minnesota and North Dakota, and even some from Hawaii that have never been to like a professional sports game. And the tickets were pretty cheap because both teams are not doing too hot. Yeah. And they'd be like, please, at least sit in this section where the camera is going to be looking at. So it looks like, yeah. So it was the National Federation of Catholic Youth Ministries annual membership meeting called Exchange. So let's just make it as long as possible to say it.
I'm just going to guess that there's not an E at the beginning of that word.
There is an E.
Wow.
Yeah, there is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something in Catholic Youth Ministry that wasn't corny. I'm impressed. I'm genuinely surprised.
I will let you know that Catholic Youth Ministry over the last 5 years, pandemic and stuff like that, has suffered a pretty big hit. And that meeting had dwindled down to about 150 people. There were 270.
That was all full-time youth ministers in the U.S. after COVID.
I mean, an argument could be made that's not too far off. At least full-time youth ministers and diocesan directors that parishes and dioceses were willing to spend a couple $100 extra on formation for them. And so the fact that we are seeing growth in numbers, especially over the last 3 years, is very encouraging. There's also some neat things going on in the field of research surrounding Gen Z and Gen Alpha and different things like that. So I wanted to unpack one of these things. Dr. Josh Packard from the Future of Faith Institute came and shared this amazing presentation. Did you know that the bishops came out with a new document on youth ministry?
Yes, I have heard. I'm aware. I have not
looked
at it.
You remember the most recent document before that? What was the name of that document?
Renewing the Vision, and the image on the front of that book is still the greatest thing that the Catholic Church has ever done. And by that, I mean far worst. Not worst, but third worst, and that's saying something for the many atrocities that have been committed.
Yeah, I'm looking. It's somewhere in my office, but nevertheless, it came out in 1997. The artwork looked like it came out in 1989 on the cover.
I came out in 1989.
Well, there you go. And then the previous and first document the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops came out with was in like 1977 or something like that, called The Vision of Youth Ministry. So the vision, renewing the vision, and now this new pastoral letter called Listen, Teach, Send. And this came out more than 25 years after. So there might be some outdated methodology that's getting updated in regards to youth ministry or ministry in general. And I think that's what this presentation really came about to showcase. And so he talked about the economy of trust, right? And so if you and I are doing business and I don't trust you, then the business negotiations are going to look a little bit different than if it's like, oh no, that's our mechanic. We always send him there for anything. And you're not going to say, well, you want to charge me how much for that? I'm going to shop around a little bit. And then he'll come back and be like, well, we can do it at this price. We can cut you a 25% discount. It's like, oh, so we actually, it was right for me not to trust you, and I call around and find it for even cheaper. That shows a lack of trust. And so anyways, it changes the way that people negotiate or talk to each other. And so when I was a kid, and arguably when you were a kid growing up, we had the teacher, the preacher, and the newspaper, right? If it was in print back when you were, 7 years old, your parents could read it and be like, this must be true. That has gone away. And that went away, 10 years ago.
Newspapers and truth have gone away.
Right. But even when at the dawn of the internet, it was like, if it's on the internet, if it's on a website, then it's probably true. And now it's like, I don't know if anything on the internet is true. And so there's this kind of change in trust, but you could just say, hey, the priest said it, and so therefore it's true. Or, is someone from your church who the pastor assigned to be the youth minister said it, and so it's true. But these young people, they're not grabbing their information from one source anymore. That's not how they receive information. That's not how they vet truth and things like that. And part of it is because trust has changed, but they grab it from a wider variety. And so you hear about this with news, and people are like, yeah, I check my conservative news site, I check my liberal news site, and then I check some European news site, so that because they're non-partial or whatever. And you kind of have to check information from multiple sources. That didn't happen 30 years ago. That was not happening 30 years ago because we were in a higher confidence in trust. And so here's a couple of stats for you, and I'm just going to kind of quiz you. In 1970 compared to today, big business, what percent of people in 1970s had confidence in big business?
74.
Yeah, way low. It was 26%, and today it's 23%. So it stayed relative.
Wait, that's weird. That's weird.
I thought people in the 70s.
I thought it was going to be like crazy high. I thought it was going to be like 76 and 7.6.
Right. No, but
that might be showing my heart again and how much trust I've lost since my childhood. 100% of the trust.
But this is the dawn where they had higher trust in other institutions, right? Like the medical system or the government, because this is where they would create these serums and different things like that, and people would take them and get sicker, right? And so all of a sudden they were recognizing, wait, this fix it all, or it's shocking, but the big tobacco doesn't have your best interests in mind. All these things were coming out, and government agencies came in to fill the trust gap that was created. So that one has always been low.
And Elon just killed all of those.
But again, whatever, because people don't trust anymore. It was no longer that you needed someone to ensure that they were trustworthy, which is, he also killed, did you know that there was a grant for $1.6 million for spinning cats and then doing research on how dizzy they are? Like they would spin them. I'm like, you could make more than 1.6 million a year off a YouTube channel that just showed them doing this experiment. Like Dizzy Kittens / YouTube or whatever. Yeah. So the medical system, the trust was the highest. So this is the highest in the 1970s. What do you think it was?
Trust in the medical system?
Yeah.
I'm going to say high 70s for almost all of these.
High 70s. Yeah, it's 80%.
Okay.
And today...
I was way closer with that one.
You were way closer, yeah. And today, what do you think it is?
24.
Well, 36%. Yeah. So that's the biggest gap in regards to it. Like, people no longer trust the medical system. The presidency. What was the trust in?
It's because they all disagree with each other. It pisses me off.
You're not wrong, but at least one of them are, so the presidency. What was that?
Might not be true either.
The presidency. What level of trust did the American people have?
Well, I mean, the last few have had the least likability of all time.
But in the 1970s.
70s?
Yeah.
It can't be much more than 50 because people have always been split.
You're absolutely right. And it was because of the political divide, 52%, and now it's down to 38%.
Yeah. Now, the only thing that both sides agree on the last few elections, we don't like any of them.
But we hate you more.
Exactly. Yeah. No one has voted for someone they liked in 12 years. We just vote for the person we hate the least.
Exactly. Yeah. But medical, the public schools have gone down from 58 to 29%. Organized religion has dropped from 65% down to 36%. And so the point is what we're doing in regards to evangelization, what we're doing in regards to catechesis, in regards to formation, we're in a global trust recession. And to rebuild our faith institutions, we can't simply tell people to have faith in them, right? And so, in other words, we are using high trust methodology in a low trust world. And this is where it's not enough just to say, hey, we're hosting Vacation Bible School, so we can assume that everyone's going to sign up. The church is doing a thing, so everyone's going to come. We actually have to create bridges or on-ramps to trust to Catholicism. People are not going to trust the church, but they might trust Taylor, who they played softball with, who said, yeah, I still go to church and I've struggled with things. And it's like, well, I stopped going to church when I was in my early 20s. But Taylor, maybe I'll come and sit with you and your family. And they say there's one activity that makes the most meaningful impact in today's low trust world.
Softball?
One action. Say again?
Softball?
And it's softball. Absolutely. Church softball leagues. They're transforming the church through church softball leagues.
That's actually, ironically enough, how youth ministry started in the 1970s.
It was originally, well, not in the 70s, but in the 30s, where youth ministry actually began. It was the Irish priest and the Italian priest meeting in gyms and fighting their teens. It was a fight club. The original youth ministry was
racism. Awesome.
Hold on, racist boxing. There's a difference. It wasn't just racism. Racist boxing. Yeah,
it's
it was
racism. Racism is hating you. What we're doing here is saying we're better.
we're making racism a sport, and yeah. So, anyways, but there's one activity. I want to see if you can get it. What's the one activity that every disciple, every Christian can do to build trust in an individual, to bring them into the faith?
Meals, food.
False. Nope. Keep trying. That's we'll start with there and we'll do hot or colder. You'll get 4 more guesses.
Okay. So ask the question again. What's one thing that I can do to be good at
what's
my
an
job?
action? What's an action that you can do to build trust? The single action that builds the greatest amount of trust.
I'll do 2 guesses at once. Either simply talking to them or helping them in their time of need.
Okay, talking to them is a lot warmer. That's like hot. Yes, it's very close to talking to them. Very close.
Communicating with them telepathically. That would be impressive and would work every time.
It probably would. Let's take a step back. Once you're done talking with them, like in that very moment, you ask them a question, then what action do you take?
Respect them and walk away. Wait for the next conversation.
Listen. You listen.
The name of the book. Got it.
Yeah, there it is. Listening. Listening is the most important and vital action in regards to building trust.
I want to prove this is why I got this wrong. I just want you to look at today's episode. What did we do? For 40 minutes, I talked and then I listened. You listened first and then talked, and I think your way is better. So I don't say talk and then listen. I think the correct way is to listen first, then talk. That's why I didn't get it.
So it means that sharing Catholicism in this modern era isn't about having the right answers. It's about asking a good question and then journeying with them with your ears, listening. And then what happens is they might not trust the institutional church, but they trust Taylor. And Taylor says, come sit with me at the 9:00 Mass. So I go sit with him in the 9:00 Mass. And then built upon the shoulders of many, many saints, throwback, we go ahead and eventually fall in love with the church again, and so that is the pathway towards it, is listening. And our evangelistic efforts, or our evangelical efforts, have been so centered over the years around curriculum and books and different things like that. And I'm just like, no, having the best presentation of material, like Father Mike Schmidt is not as good of a catechist as you sitting with your neighbor and listening. It's just a fact. And so that is something that we need to rethink the way that we're doing things, because so much of formation, they call it religious education. But authentic faith formation starts with us asking a good question and then listening, and then listening, and then listening. And so that is how we, in a low trust economy, create high trust for Christ and his church.
You know what? This makes sense. I think I might have shared about this in the show, but it's good that you're here for multiple reasons. But like, there was a retreat that I filled in for you. You had whatever, you're being kind to me, and you're like, hey, you lead this retreat. And I went and led this retreat out at Eagle's Wings, where you and I often work together. And they called me. So this wasn't me being good at ministry. This wasn't me listening to the bishops reading the new document. It was literally just out of necessity, because they called me like the day before. It was the one where it was a scheduling issue or whatever. They called me like 2 days before. They're like, hey, can you come to this retreat? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. And then I had to do all I had to do was work all day Friday to get all my work done or whatever, and then leave the next day. So I didn't have a ton of time to plan the retreat. So, I mean, like, you and I have done this long enough. It's like, we can lead a retreat. If you want me to lead a retreat right now, I can do it. Right. But I think the thing that I changed because of that scenario is the first thing that I asked them was like, what do you want out of this retreat? And what do you want to know about God? And I've asked that question before, but I never built the retreat. I had always pre-built the retreat, and I was like, oh, I'll kind of like maybe
work it in here.
Yeah, exactly. Work it into this pre-written talk or pre-built activity or whatever. And this time I was like, guys, like, I don't have a schedule. I didn't make anything, like, and you can't be mad at me. Like, you just invited me. We're taking this block at 3 hours at a time. We'll do 3 hours, then lunch, then 3 hours, then an activity, then 2 hours, then dinner, then 3 hours. Like, we're blocking this thing out. And I literally built the retreat off of what they asked for. And it was one of the best retreats I've ever led in my life. And they loved it, because it's like, I think I've always incorporated like things of like listening to small groups and like Q&A and listening to them or whatever. And then answering the questions they actually have instead of assuming what questions they have, that sort of thing. But it's like, this was the most like legitimately, I didn't say anything until I listened first, and it went very, very well. So it's just really interesting that like it's also the youngest group of kids I've ever worked with. I tend to not work with junior high as much as I do high school and college, or adults even now, because of the gray in my beard, but like, this was like fifth graders. I think it was a fifth grade retreat. And so this is the youngest group of kids I've ever ministered to. And it was great, I think, because of the listening first. And it was completely by accident. I can't even take credit for it. The only credit is they called me late. Congratulations. It made me better.
Yeah, because it was their retreat, the kids' retreat,
right,
not your retreat. Otherwise, you would have gone in with your retreat that you think they would enjoy. Instead, you built it around their very heart. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Good. So
it's given me some soul searching. And a lot of times I feel better when I'm sharing things that I have a lot of confidence in, because I own the material or whatever. I've worked this talk. I've got this point. I've got this thing. But then a kid would say, or a teen would say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or what are your thoughts about that? And you're like, honestly, I struggle with it too. And I feel inadequate. But what I'm actually saying is the church is a safe place to struggle with things. That's what they hear. Mm-hmm. And it's in those moments of listening that create opportunities for authenticity. See, the church is a place for the broken. I know because I'm broken. And I just heard you share how you're broken too. Come on in, the water's fine, and people will. But otherwise, it's not going to be like, well, we have the fullness of truth and we have the best theology. And you know what? We do. We have great, solid theology. We've got amazing sacraments, amazing. Like Jesus is truly present, body, blood, soul, and divinity. They don't care until they're known. And then they can fall in love. And a lot of times we've been doing it the other way around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You fall in love with a person, not a textbook.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that you talk about building trust, because the other day I saw a prayer that you might have heard of, but I think it was new to me. I think I had seen it maybe going around like Catholic girly Instagram or whatever, but I never actually like read it. And I love this prayer primarily because it's not the litany of humility. That's the only I know the litany of the saints that we sing every once a year or whatever, twice a year at All Saints and the Easter Vigil, right? The litany of humility, which I hate. I don't even agree with it theologically. I think it's a stupid prayer.
Okay.
I finally found one that I can pray that I think actually probably accomplishes a lot of the same things that the litany of humility is trying to do. But it is called the Litany of Trust. Have you prayed this before?
Yes, I've actually been given it as penance. I think I have a copy right here. Litany of Trust.
Okay, well we're gonna try this. Let's see if you know your lines.
You
have the easy lines. You only have one line a lot, and then another line a lot, and then it's over.
I'm ready.
All right, we're doing this. Hopefully yours is the same. Hopefully yours is the NAB version and not the RSV version.
Right.
All right. In the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. From the belief that I have to earn your love.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear that I am unlovable.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the false security that I have what it takes.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear that trusting you will leave me more destitute.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From all suspicion of your words and promises.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the rebellion against childlike dependency on you.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From refusals and reluctances in accepting your will.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From anxiety about the future.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From resentment or excessive preoccupation with the past.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From restless self-seeking in the present moment.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From disbelief in your love and presence.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being asked to give more than I have.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the belief that my life has no meaning or worth.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of what love demands.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From discouragement.
Deliver me, Jesus.
That you are continually holding me, sustaining me, loving me.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That your love goes deeper than my sins and failings and transforms me.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That not knowing what tomorrow brings is an invitation to lean on you.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you are with me in my suffering.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That my suffering, united to your own, will bear fruit in this life and the next.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you will not leave me orphaned, that you are present in your church.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That your plan is better than anything else.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you always hear me and in your goodness always respond to me.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you give me the grace to accept forgiveness and to forgive others.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you give me all the strength I need for what is asked.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That my life is a gift.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you will teach me to trust you.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you are my Lord and my God.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That I am your beloved one.
Jesus, I trust in you.
If you want to know the list of things I've been struggling with, it's not one of those things. It is the list. The list is what I've been struggling with. So I think this is a prayer that I will keep because it's challenging and difficult, but not literally impossible, like the Litany of Humility. So I'm a big fan of this prayer, and I think it's going to be helpful for me, and I hope that is helpful for you, Mr. Listener or Mrs. Listener.
Thank you for praying with me, Taylor.
Thank you for praying with me as well, Mr. Bartlett. I I was convinced you were not going to get the transition from Deliver Me Jesus to Jesus I Trust in You, and you nailed it. I'm so proud of us. We did it.
I had one job. Bam.
All right, I'm Taylor Schroll. I'll be back next month. I'll be back next week. That's Chris Bartlett. He'll be back in a month. See ya! Thank you for listening and watching to today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. Be on guard. Not on guard. It's not like it's going to jump out and scare you, but be on the lookout on our YouTube channel and on our Forte Plus feed on Apple Podcasts for a little something new, something we've never done before that I'm pretty excited about, and I'm interested to see what y'all hear about it. So make sure you hit subscribe and all those things so you don't miss out on all the fun. Love you.